Good evening and welcome to another episode of You're Crazy and I'm Not. It's Saturday, July 2nd at 6:12 p.m. You're crazy and I'm not. How do I know this? Because I'm not delusional and you're delusional. All of you. Completely delusional. What's a delusional person? A delusional person is a person who believes what the media tells them. They believe what they hear on anything. It doesn't matter what it is. They choose their own reality along with their social network and their friends, and they all believe that they're the chosen ones of, I don't know, the Hindu prophet or Oprah or Eckhart Tolle or the View in the Bahamas drinking uh, pina coladas and wearing muumuus or tutus or Desmond Moonmoos or born again Christian rapture people that are going up in the rapture or what have you. I'm telling you, I'm the only sane person in the vicinity of this entire Metro Goldwyn Mayer produced suburban asphalt jungle, whatever you want to call it. I'm watching predictions of J.P. Morgan. This is J.P. Morgan, you know. Anybody familiar with J.P. Morgan out there? They're not living in a fantasy world. They're predicting that oil is going to hit $380 a barrel. Oil companies have had record profits over the first quarter and windfall profits they've never experienced in history. Are they? I thought we were a socialist country. How come we're not nationalizing the oil companies? Bernie and AOC. Oh, they're too busy fighting Russia. That's why our oil prices are going through the roof. These people know what they're doing. They've never known what they were doing. Bernie Sanders has always been a pro-Castro Cuban or Nicaraguan, Sandinista. He has his wedding in Moscow. He's a multimillionaire that works great in Vermont, where everybody's an artist and growing organic food and it's what's called the loony left. Those people are crazy. I'm not one of them. The born again Christians, Creflo Dollar and Joel Osteen, those people are crazy. The people in the psychiatric association are completely crazy. By delusional, I mean not living in the real world that used to exist, 50 or 60 years ago before the birth of television. And people became actors in their own drama. As increasingly, you got to have your iPhone, and it all integrates into marvelous, magical, self-controlled universe where you are whoever you think you are. Gravitate towards the all-powerful Tom Cruise or Johnny Depp. Live vicariously through your favorite superhero. Become better yet, comic. Ha ha ha, la la, LOL. Heart. Awesome. It's cool. It's really groovy. It's what's happening in Russia. Russia, what Russia? Oh yeah, we're at war. We're going to defeat Putin. Let's send the ships and nuclear weapons. Okay. Where was I in my Star Wars universe? Or they're listening to some. I don't know what anybody's listening to. When I see the YouTube feed, I can't believe this stuff. I mean, mostly it's techie garbage. You can make $250,000 a year selling your products on Walmart or SamMart or Sam's Club or Costco. Meanwhile, 70 to 80% of the goods that are sold at Walmart and Costco come from China. We're at war with China, in case anybody wasn't paying attention. So how are those goods going to come? particularly when oil is going up to $380 a barrel, according to J.P. Morgan. So I'm just looking at, I'm kind of like reality-based news. Besides, I'm selling these wonderful T-shirts. So everybody give me a contribution and I'll send you a T-shirt. And maybe I can survive, to buy enough gas, to get from here to the drugstore by, next month, after my Social Security checks get cut off, or whatever little tiny bits of income I get. That's a whole nother story. But really, I'm here to spread the word of the Lord. That's what I do. That's all I do. Except nobody wants to hear it because they're all being raptured up. They don't need any. What do I have to tell somebody who's already firm with, his Panera Bread coffee shop Christianity? Cool cancel culture coffee shop Christianity, conservation, what core? Just spread the seas out. Church of Christ, cancel culture, Church of Christ. The liberals want to cancel culture and be Christians, so that's the Joe Bidens, and have abortion on demand, and that's not in the Bible. Homosexuality isn't even in the Bible. Fornication isn't even in the Bible. Masturbation isn't even allowed in the Bible. It's a pretty strict religion. It's pretty strict in Islam too. But we're going to go over to Afghanistan or wherever, Syria, and we're going to tell them that they've got to have transgender people on their councils, in their tribal councils. Yeah, that worked real well. So it's as if we're in this total fantasy world. We're going to teach them. Also, part of the budget for Afghanistan was to teach the greatness of Marcel Duchamp's toilet, whatever it is, his urinal, to the people of Afghanistan so they understand what real art is, not their false beliefs. The true belief of a urinal and canned shit is great art, and graffiti is the epitome, the apex of Western civilization. So who's crazy? I'm putting my money on my own self, on God, on the God of the Bible. That's where my money is with Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. So that's all I have. That's all I have that's all I personally have myself. I have no, I have a few friends and acquaintances, people I love, but I have no friends other than Jesus. I have no other intimates. I have no church. I listen to a number of really solid sermons and prophets that are on YouTube, and that's satisfactory, and I read scripture. And I make my little drawings that are transmitted and always have been through visions and dreams that I've had I've seen this coming for 50 years, 60 years, and I've seen its increasing tempo, and I was making comics about it, and nobody understood. Why didn't they understand them? I mean, it was, we're in the Iraq War when I was making the comics, and I was making them about Dick Cheney, and I was making them about Guantanamo, and I was making them about the fiasco. This is before the fiasco. Back then, when I was making the comic, I couldn't get it distributed by the major distributors because it was not professional enough. I had to do, I don't know if you've seen Mike Diana or Mark Beyer or, Primitive Genitalia, the anarchist. That's professional. But a comic that's about the disastrous, U.S. foreign policy and torturing of prisoners and satirizing Dick Cheney Well, nobody can understand that because nobody at the time knew there was an Iraq war going on, just like now. Nobody in the comic industry or Hollywood knows there's a Russian war going on, or a China war in China, or Syria, or Israel, or anywhere else. They're living in a profoundly disturbed psychosis. That's the theme of my YouTube channel, I guess. You call it a channel. The theme of my channel is that I'm a dissenter from the mass psychosis. I dissent. I disagree with all this fantasy language and fantasy land and carnival atmosphere. I don't know, you name it, SNL, Stephen Colbert, Wanda Sykes, whatever they've got going on. Trevor Noah. Noah what? I don't know what he knows. I can't make any sense. Will Smith is punching Chris Rock in the head. Why did he do it? Because he's psycho. I mean, what do you mean, why did he do it? What is it? Oh, because Chris Rock disturbed some, triggers psychosis. Oh, he's going to be condemned. We forgive because, Jesus saves and Jesus forgives or doesn't forgive. Basically, Jesus doesn't have anything to do with Hollywood any more than he has to do with Las Vegas, any more than he has to do with the Las Vegasization and Hollywoodization of Jesus. Whoever, or Jesus Christ CEO, or all of these self-help Jesus books, it might as well be Dale Carnegie and How to Win Friends and Influence People, or it's the Law of Attraction, or it's Transcendental Meditation, like Jim Carrey. I think Jim Carrey is way past sanity to begin with, but he also talks about selling his soul to the devil. Many of the people that have sold their soul to the devil are extremely candid about it. Jack Black says it, and Dylan is saying it, and all the Judas priests, and they've long said it. The Dead Baby tour of Alice Cooper, but he's a Christian because he says he's a Christian, but Merle Haggard is a Christian, just because he says he's a Christian. I don't know, is Willie Nelson a Christian now? Is Snoop Dogg a Christian? The Rock is a Christian? I mean, if you don't change your behavior, it's not a convincing label to put on yourself. It's not a matter of saying I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I'm going to go down to the altar and I'm going to, praise God, and I'm going to accept Jesus as my Savior, and then I'm going to head back out for the ball game and carry on with life as usual. Because, come on, let's be realistic. I mean, this is the 21st century. How are you supposed to not lust after women? How are you supposed to, not watch all this violence and porn and all the excitement of your real estate investments and following the money and getting into the inside of the political spectacle and liberation of whoever has to be liberated next. Who's unliberated? I can't imagine. That's not freedom, and that's not freedom from bondage that Jesus talked about. The freedom from bondage is the freedom from addictions to all of the worldly desires. It's the same thing Buddha talked about. They're different, they're different religions, but in that aspect, they both are talking about just losing desire, not desiring anything that's worldly, and being a pacifist and being nonviolent, loving your neighbor, loving your enemy. So those are the core beliefs, and that's those. As far as I know, and I don't have any awareness of any Buddhists that have lost their ego. I mean, of course you wouldn't. Just like with Jesus, the only followers of Jesus who have denied themselves and have picked up their cross are going to be like a guy sitting around a coffee shop, minding his own business, or taking a walk in the park and not drawing any attention to himself or herself or them itself, whatever. The gay pride thing, right? The black pride, the proud boys. That's one of the seven deadly sins, vanity, and it's throughout the Bible. I mean, that's where the seven deadly sins come from. It's from understanding that humility and service and a denial of one's own will and the surrender to God's will. Are at the core of Christian belief system. So what am I talking about this afternoon? I don't know. I don't know what to talk about. I'm lamenting. I'm in the middle of lamentations. I'm weeping. I break into tears seeing what's going on. I'm not going to do it on a video. I do it in the silence of prayer, just like Christ did, or just like the apostles did. The appropriate place for wailing and lamentation is in privacy, not making a show and a display of it and banging your head against the wailing wall or whatever they're doing. But those are not Christians. I don't know about those people. Not many. Nobody else really knows about them, do they? They blow up the Temple Mosque. Who's the guy with they shoot Rabin, or they're all trampling each other at Rosh Hashanah ceremony, or who knows what. That's and the primitive. It's just as primitive in terms of progressives looking at religion as incorporating Christian values. It's more like the Nation of Islam than it is Christianity. But I just see there being just what Christ said, a small remnant in the end times. And I'm not in the business of, right at the moment, of picking out and illuminating. Enough people are, and illuminating who the chosen are and who the chosen aren't. I have different people that I gravitate to in terms of their being really traditional, not being progressive, because God isn't progressive. There's nothing in the Bible talking about the laws changing. When Jesus came to earth, he says, I didn't come here to change the law. I came here to fulfill it, and to bring a sword and to separate out the wheat from the chaff, and to discern. Everybody has to discern separately what is permissible under the law and what isn't. It's serious times now. I mean, we're past the point of no return. I was praying and praying, and I've got to say, my prayers are as like a fart in a hurricane when it comes to being able to change anything in people's behavior or belief. I've seen this coming on. I've marched against the wars. I've been on the left. Up until the point where Obama just started marching into one with Hillary into one country after another. So Bush marches into 2, Obama and Hillary march into 6, and then Joe Biden follows with handing all of our weaponry to the Taliban and going into World War III to support a oligarchic dictator in Ukraine who's very little different than Putin, except he has no military experience and common sense like Putin does. But he has his own Tuscan villas and moneyed interests, and he has us surrounded by his oligarchs and cronies, and he's stopped all freedom of the press, and opposition parties are gone. So it's a dictatorship. Just simply saying what reality is. That's my stock in trade. Really is seeing reality for what it is, rather than listening to this mind-numbing propaganda that's designed around rabble rousing, or demagoguery, or turning people against each other, as ethnically, along ethnic lines, along sexual identity lines, along religious lines, you name it. Anything that can be a wedge issue, anything that can be, everything that's going on now, while we need desperately to come together as a unified country and as a unified people, is to stoke hatred and motivate the base over SCOTUS ruling on abortion and LGBTQ transgenders. That's just like with the Republicans, you motivate the gun nuts. They're second, they're going to lose their assault rifles. Oh my God, we can't. Why not just give up the assault rifles? Why not say abortion is legal in the states? States choose which. Go to your state legislatures and campaign to get abortion clinics, and convince people at the level of politics, right, in the states, rather than having these federal mandates on hot button issues. So you have this separation. I think that the only solution is really clear to me is like a 2-state solution. People who want to live with traditional Christian values can move to the red states, and people who want to live with libertine socialist values, whatever those are, like, it seems to me that those values have turned into, and that's why so many people from California and New York and Seattle or wherever, you're moving out of places where people are not controlled in any way, shape, or form by laws. Laws against vandalism. You have laws against trying to influence the Supreme Court justice. It's a federal law about death threats and being, somebody trying to assassinate a Supreme Court justice, and people out pressuring and screaming at threats to, including Chuck Schumer and Maxine Waters. I mean, that's incitement to violence, and it's illegal under the federal Constitution. And we're in a state of real anarchy, just because people want their point of view and think that they're morally right, and the other people are not morally right. Who is to say other than God? But we don't believe in God as a people. That's all I'm pointing out. Is I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I believe people who don't are crazy. I believe people who don't believe, because the prophecies are infallible. That they've all proven true. Isaiah 53 prophesies Jesus Christ and his death. Everything that happens to Jesus is laid out 700 years before he was crucified. And this was in a written document found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So it wasn't just oral tradition. This is recorded history prophesying exactly who Jesus Christ, the Messiah, would be, and what he would endure, and that he would be hated, and that he would be, ugly, and all of the rest. So these pictures of Jesus as this, whoever, I don't know what the guy's name is that plays him in the Passion, which I've never seen because I can't. The last thing I want to see is the Mexican Spanish bloodbath Jesus, that I can't even stand the stuff, in depictions of this kind of torture bloodbath. I don't mind Grunewald for some reason, but it's like because the Mexican stuff comes out of the Aztec religion. They saw, they didn't change their religion. They just metamorphosed it into Christianity. So all of that satanic stuff, because they were, if those aren't devil worshippers, I don't know what are. They were, sacrificing virgins and throwing them in the cenotes, and they were cutting out hearts and taking slaves, and the whole, the Bartolome de las Casas, I forget what the name of the priest who wrote the book, Bartolome de las Casas, I think, describing the first view of the Aztecs. Was it just the stench? The blood covered. They were horrified, as anybody would be, to see this, terrifying barbarians this, even for people like the Spanish who were barbaric themselves. So there's different levels of barbarism, but the interesting thing to me, I mean, I've studied Mexican religion, Mexican history, is that it is this God that is the people actually believe that Moctezuma is a god, and he's a false idol. That there's God. If you don't worship God, you're worshiping a false idol. So the Caesars as gods, or the Egyptian pharaohs and as gods, Cleopatra as a god, so a goddess. So here's what happened with the Aztec Empire was Cortez went in and took captive Montezuma, and that was it. The whole empire was done because that was God. He defeated God. He put him in chains. They eventually tried to rescue him and bring him back. Because God was imprisoned, but he'd been defeated. I mean, that's the sound. That's the psychological blow against this mighty empire. Plus, Cortez had enlisted all of the vassal tribes, Aboriginal peoples, native peoples, who were under the oppression of the tyranny of Moctezuma and the Aztecs, who raid them, murder them, rape them, take all their, the tribute, it's called. So they fought with Cortez. So it wasn't just Cortez and a handful of Spaniards on horses. Anyway, it's just to clarify the hippie nonsense of the Neil Young people, that they were, the Aztecs were peaceful people, and, flowers and Xochimilco, and built things that today nobody could build themselves. But, then the killer Cortez came and just senselessly massacred everybody. And they didn't build a civilization. Like that civilization comes out of Christianity, even with all the blood baths, and then nothing I'd ever want to defend. You have to draw a distinction between a murderous pagan rituals where children and women are virgins are sacrificed in Christianity, where that isn't happening. I mean, there's as depraved as the Catholic Church is, it's going on now. all over the place. That's what we're not recognizing. So I recognize the satanic kingdom. I recognize the reality of the demonic realm and the reality of hell. And most people don't recognize that. They think I'm insane. So that's the theme that I open with in my good evening introduction. That I'm not crazy, you are. If you don't believe in Jesus, if you don't believe in Satan, if you don't believe in hell, if you don't believe in demons, if you don't believe in the reality of child sacrifice and ritual torture and, Aleister Crowley, if you don't think that's real, then you're crazy. God bless.